So, hey everyone, we'll start with the webinar that we have today about synchronization. So, how can we synchronize a document, or how can we synchronize a video game, or how can we synchronize an AR model? So, we'll start with having the use case. That is that we have a system where we require close collaboration between multiple users over a network that may or may not have some latency. It realistically speaking, it will, but this latency can be significant as well as insignificant. So we are prepared to deal all the edge cases with this. So the question comes: how can uh, we synchronize a document? So how can we synchronize a document? So we'll start with the very basic of it. So anything can be synchronized with the help of locking. That's given. So only one user can edit at a time, and nobody else has that access. But we want something better than that, since we want close collaboration. So locking does not fit that criteria. So we can improve locking by giving the added access in a round robin fashion, and that too in interval. Round robin means in sequential order. So the second thing that we can do is that we can lock sections of that document instead of locking that entire document. So for example, you can edit one paragraph of Google Docs, I can edit the other paragraph. So, but again, this is still not close collaboration. We want something better than this. So there is another thing that we come across. It is called event passing. So event passing is primarily a peer-to-peer system where, for example, all of us want to edit a text document. So what we'll do is we'll be connected to each other via socket connection, and we'll send updates to each other. So let's say, take an example of a game. So we are playing a game, and I send you an update that, okay, I have fired a gun towards your direction. So that could be one way of having synchronization. But the problem comes up very quickly. So that, for example, say user one, there is a user one that shoots the user two. But since there might be some latency in the network, it takes time for the bullet, for the update to reach from the device of user one to user two. And in that time, it may happen that the user two moves. So user two will be dead in the game for user one, but it won't be for the game of every other user, including user two. So this is the kind of fallacy that we have with event passing, and it creates a fork in the document or in the game. A fork is two different directions. So this is why event passing, although allows us to have close collaboration, but it is very prone to network delays and latencies. So we go to something even better than that. We go to event passing. So what happens we go to three-way merge. So what happens in three-way merge is that there is some initial version of the document that is base version 1, as you can see over there. And the user sends the updates that it has made. The client text so the client sends the updates that it has made to the server. The server calculates the differences between the client text and the base version, and it finds the changes that it has made. So it may also happen that someone else made some other changes before this, but the client was unaware of it. So it uses a three-way merge to produce a base version 2, and this version 2 is then sent back to the client. So you have actually seen this three-way merge before. This is nothing but what happens in Git. So for example, this is the base version 1, and you create a new branch, and you make some edits in it, and some other contributor make those edits in some other branch of the Git, and then you just create a merge, and then then all the clients then pull this version. So this is what a three-way merge is. So the problem with three-way merge is that it has a half duplex system. So as long as you are typing, you won't be receiving any updates from the server. So you can basically understand this. As long as you are editing the code and you're not pulling from the server, you won't receive any updates from the server. So it is a half duplex system. it is equivalent to, so if I were to give an analogy for this, so imagine that you are driving a car, and in the meantime then you stop, and then you look on the road, and then you look back down, and then start driving. So you can only do one operation at a time. So three-way merge is actually brilliant when it comes to synchronizing something, but not in real time. So so we'll see how we can fix this. But before we go into the depth of how three-way merge can be adapted in a situation where it is able to handle uh, close collaboration in real time, we'll discuss what is called the CAP theorem. So CAP theorem has three components basically: consistency, availability, and partition. So what consistency means is that data will be same across all the nodes of a network. So say for example, all of us are editing a Google Docs. So on our screen, the document should be exactly the same. That is called uh, consistency. Availability means that data will be accessible even if a few nodes in the network go down. So in this case, we'll imagine that, okay, so in the event to, for example, in event passing, we have peer-to-peer system, and if one of the nodes goes down, everyone else would still be able to play the game. So that is called availability. But it may happen that, as we saw in three-way merge, that if this server goes down, then nobody else will able to access the current version of the document. So it is not available at all times. So it lacks availability. Partition is that each node has a function. Each node can function even if they are constantly not in contact with each other. So what this means is that the database is distributed. So for example, let's go back to the Google Docs example. So in that case, all of the users, let's say we all are editing it, so all of us can uh, edit the document independently. So it means that the the database is partitioned. The database is partitioned, and each of them can function without each other. So according to CAP theorem, we can only have two of these three things. So our use case was that the users can independently edit the document. So we definitely need partition. And if you look back at locking, so it wasn't the partition property was not present there, since only one user was editing at a time, and every other user was just viewing there. But it was available, so all of us can look at it at any point of time, and it was also consistent. So what the first user was seeing was also the same thing that I was seeing. So can any of you guess what properties that does three-way merge has? So is it consistent, is it available, and is it partition? Anyone wants to try? You can chat, put it in chat box, or you can unmute yourself. Okay. So if you do consistency, so three-way merge is, yeah, definitely not consistent. So each of the users in Git can have different code at different point of time. So it is definitely not consistent. It is partition because you can edit something and I can make some other edit, and we can all have that in a distributed fashion. But is it available? I think I said it before. So it is not available because if server goes down, then the whole thing fails. Nobody can do anything. But it can be made available a bit. So, for example, you can have such a fashion that there are many number of nodes, and if one of them fails, we can have some sort of system that the other one comes live. But again, so you have to realize that everything would be nothing can be all three. Nothing can be consistent, for example. So it will still take the time that the speed of light will take to the light will take to travel from one point to another. But when I say consistent, I do not mean that it will be instantaneously the same thing. So if you are editing, I am editing, and if I say we are consistent with each other, it doesn't mean that we'll be exactly the same. But there is a negligible delay between you and me. So that's what we mean by consistent. And same is true with availability, and same is true with partition. So, okay, yeah. So anyone wants to guess what happens with event passing? So is it consistent? If we choose to ignore the forks, so perhaps then you can answer better. Will it be consistent? Anyone? So what you want to understand here is that let's say the forks are not happening. So my updates will reach your updates in a certain amount of time. And if we assume that the network is perfect, then yeah, of course it is consistent. But since there are forks that are happening at any point of time, it will not stay consistent. It will be available because if one of the nodes fail, other nodes can still continue to edit that document or play that game. Since it is peer-to-peer, there is no central server. It is partitioned because we can all edit at different points of time. So that was what CAP theorem was all about. So let's go to something better, which was differential synchronization. So differential synchronization is, to give you a brief summary, it is nothing but a three-way merge but applied in two directions. So it is converting the half duplex structure of a three-way merge into a full duplex. We'll see what it means, but let's just go back to the very basics here. So the common shadow is base version, what we saw before. We have the client model, we have the server model. So of course there can be n number of clients. We'll just stick with one. So let's say there are some updates in client, and what client will do is that it will take the diff from with the help of the common shadow. Diff is the differences or what you send in Git. So that is what the diff is. So we calculate the diff using the common shadow. We then find out what are the edits that the current user has made. We then update the shadow, and then we go on to patch. So what we'll do in patch is that we'll apply those to the server model. In this situation, what will happen is, so say for example, just as in Git, so say for example, you and I have made some changes. You have made some changes in the first paragraph. I have made some changes in the third paragraph. All of them will be patched together, no issues. But say if there is a conflict between you and me, then according to differential synchronization, the server always wins. So we'll say that the server is authoritative. So let's say if what happens if a patch is successful, there are no conflicts. So the patch will be applied to the server model. Say someone else makes some changes in server model, some other user, we then calculate the diff, we then calculate the edit, and we update the common shadow, and then we send the patch and apply that patch on the client model. In this case, when the patch is applied, say the client has made some changes of his own. So it may happen that there arises a conflict. So in this situation, we'll say that the client, since the server always wins, the changes that are made by the client, if they are in conflict with the changes that are made by server, then those changes will be reverted back. So this was what differential synchronization was in single shadow. So so since there is just one shadow, we call it single shadow. But the problem in this case is that it will work only on one device because the common shadow has to be shared, and that is not exactly useful. So we'll see how we can convert it into a dual shadow mode. But before that, here is an example of what happens if a patch fails. So let's say that in this case a patch fails. So the patch and the diff is calculated again. So the conflicting changes are ignored. The edit is then sent back to the client. The patch is made. So this is what was differential synchronization. Now we'll come to what happens is in differential synchronization in dual mode. So if you just see that only change here is that we divided this common shadow into two halves. So client shadow and server shadow. Now these two things can exist on different devices connected over a network. So this is what we do to solve that problem. Now let's see how it works. So yeah, so one more important thing to note down here is that the client shadow and the server shadow have to be exactly the same. at every half cycle. So if you look back there, so at every half cycle from client to model, we were checking the client shadow or updating the client shadow. So if we are to follow the same schematics here, it is important that client shadow and server shadow are same at every half cycle. We'll see how that happens and what we'll do if they are not in a minute. So yeah, another thing is to make sure that they are the same at every half cycle. We'll introduce something called a checksum, some variable or something, you can think of it like that. So we'll pass this checksum along, and it will make sure that both of them are same. So what happens is, let's say the client made some changes. We calculate the diff, we calculate the edits, we then send that, and we apply that patch to server shadow. Now this patch will be just uh, uh, now if the checksum passes, let's say, then we'll apply a fuzzy patch over there. But fuzzy patch means we looked at that before. So if there are no conflicts, then it will just patch them. If there are conflicts, then server wins. Now the same thing will happen on the return on the other half cycle. So this was now what happens if the checksum fails. So let's say that the checksum fails. So this client shadow and server shadow are not same at the half cycle. So the server model will just put whatever it has on the server shadow, and it will just send a resync command back to the client, and everything will come back to sync. So yeah, the other half of cycle will then continue. Now, one more thing that is important to note, let's say that one of the packets got dropped in between. So we are currently at here, we're sending a diff to the server, and one of the edit from there is not received by the server. So it will create a problem because it can make things out of sync, and we don't want that because that is time consuming to resync. So what we'll do in this case is instead of sending a single edit, we'll make a stack of edits, and we'll send that stack of edits over to the server. And when a particular edit has been implemented, we'll send that confirmation back, and that particular edit will be removed from that stack of edits. So that is how we can. And you have to notice this, that let's say if the packet is dropped at the first half cycle, then since it has been dropped, the server never receives it, and the server never sends confirmation that okay, that I have received this edit, and the client will never drop it from the edit. So whenever the client gains connection back to the internet, that particular set of edit will still be sent over to the server, and the server will then receive it and then acknowledge that okay, it has been received. So this sort of system will actually work in a offline manner also. So this is why you can see that Google Docs can sometimes allow you to have offline access as well. There is actually a lot more to it, but for the sake of this seminar, I'm skipping that part. So you have to create some backups and everything to handle some edge cases. Yeah, so Vikas, so earlier we saw that the shadow was only if there is only single shadow, then it has to be present somewhere, right? So it can't be, since the client and server are on different devices, they can't access a common copy, because that's the whole problem, that we cannot access something over. We are having problems in accessing something over the internet in real time. So since it cannot be accessed instantaneously, we need to maintain two separate copies that are saved locally. Does that clear your doubt? Okay. Yeah. So let's say we have a situation where one of the packet is dropped on the return half cycle. So that edit has been accepted by the server, but that edit has been dropped on the way back. So the client never knows that the edit has been received by the server. So what it will do is it will still continue to send that package of that edit package, and on the way, and the server will know that, okay, I have already applied this edit. So it will not apply, it will just simply send a confirmation. And whenever the connection between the client, this connection is resolved, the client the client will know that, okay, this edit has been applied, and will stop and will remove that edit from this pack. So I hope this is clear, because this is important. If there are any questions, please do ask, because if you don't understand this, then the next things would be a bit hard to understand. So I'll wait a minute for the questions. In the meantime, you can check out this. So this is what the whole system will look like. So there is a server at the middle, and a server shadow, and a client shadow, and a client. All of them are in a sync cycle, and there can be tens of thousands of clients that are there. Also, let's say that the server is burdened. So what we can do is we can have server text 1, server text 2 on the same, and have them synchronize with each other. So some of the clients will be connected to server 1, some of them will be connected to server 2, and the server 1 and server 2 will be connected to each other. We'll see an important application of this later on in this presentation. So yeah, any questions? All right. Yeah, so we'll move on to something that is a bit more adaptive to our case. So we saw how we can synchronize a document. But what about AR? How can we synchronize AR? And can we synchronize AR? So before we go on to discuss that, actually, I want to talk about something. So let's say we have an AR model with us. So we can have 7 parameters about it. So what are the 7 parameters? The 3 will be the position, x coordinate, y coordinate, and z coordinate. The 3 would be the rotation with respect to x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. And the 7th will be state. So what exactly is state? So imagine that we have an AR model of a plant. So the plant can have 3 stages. So sprout, a plant, or a tree. So similarly, for example, a teacher is teaching something about cells in biology. So there can be states that how the cell will behave in acidic medium. That can be one state. How the cell will behave in a neutral medium. That can be another state. How the cell will behave in basic medium. So all that can be states. So there are 7 basic components in an AR model. And what we want to do is synchronize these 7 parameters. And for each of the models, so let's say there are 3 models in a AR call, and we have to synchronize this 7 for each of the model. What exactly do I mean when I say an AR call? So let's say that everyone is present in a call, audio call, and they have their cameras on, and they can see some AR model with the help of their phone or HoloLens or whatever it is. So they can discuss, and the teacher can teach students about concepts. So that's what I mean when I say AR call. Yeah. So the problem with, we can simply use differential synchronization to synchronize those 7 parameters for each of the model. But again, the problem was that if we give equal power to the students and teachers, that can lead to spam. And so we want to have some sort of a priority system such that teachers have a better control over that AR call. And this not only just provides them a better control, but also increases the user experience for everyone. So this is what this differential synchronization will look like in case of priorities. So we have a server, and we have teacher, TAs, and student. So the order of priority is the teacher, TA, server, and then student. We'll see what this means. So yeah, so in differential synchronization, we saw that the server always wins. But in this situation, we see that the user with the highest priority wins. So let's say that there is a conflict. So the changes made by the user with low priority will be reverted, and the changes by the user with high priority will be implemented. What classifies as a conflict? So we talked about the parameters that we have. So if 2 of the users changes that particular model, then there will be a conflict. Again, so if 2 users with same priorities, let's say, make that changes, so in that case, again, the server wins. So the limitations of this will be, first of all, it will create a really bad experience if the number of students is large. So let's say there are 100 students and all of them are editing at the same time. It will create a really bad experience. The second one will be that there is a perception of lag. So what I mean by perception of lag is, let's look that with the help of an example. So I zoomed in this diagram, this part. So we have a teacher shadow, a server shadow. We have server and again students. So let's say that currently we're talking about an AR model and that is present at the X coordinate. The X coordinate of that model is X, let's say. And this one of the students starts to drag that AR model from 0 to 10, let's say. But the student has a much better network than the teacher does. The teacher has some high latency. So what will happen in this case is that it will get updated to X plus 1 and then X plus 2 and then X plus 3. Now let's say when it reaches X plus 3, an update by the teacher is received. This packet finally arrives at the server and it says that, okay, it is X minus, the teacher shifted that AR from X to X minus 5. Now imagine that happening in a real call. So someone is dragging an AR model from 0 to 10, and when that reaches 5, suddenly it goes to minus 5, and then it suddenly goes to 6. So this will create a perception of lag. It is not exactly a lag, but the user will see it like it is a lag. So it is a really bad experience, and we can handle it in a really clever way. So yeah, so you can see that it gets updated to X minus 5, and then it suddenly gets updated to X plus 6. It shifted 11 positions in just a moment. And this happened because the teacher has had higher priority than the server. So in normal differential synchronization, the server would have had higher priority than the teacher. So this change would have been rejected. It would just have been X plus 4 and then X plus 5 and then X plus 6. So no perception of lag in that situation. Anyways, so the cause of that perception is that the teacher is authoritative. So, and the authoritative figure is not the center of the sync cycle. So the center of the sync cycle in this case is this server. So the solution that is actually really simple. So we can have an authoritative element closer to the same center of sync cycle. If we can have that in some way, then we won't have perception of lag. Now this is something that was a little bit scary. talking in terms of the diagram, but the priorities that we have in this case, so this is nothing but the old one. So I'll go back to the previous diagram. So what we'll do is we'll split the server into a master server and a slave server. So we talked about priorities. So everyone who has a priority more than the server will be connected to master server, and everyone who has priority lower than the server will be connected to a slave server. So we'll see how that looks like. So all I'm doing is just splitting this. Yeah. So I split that into master server and slave server. So the highest priority is master server, and then teacher, TA, and then a slave server, and then a student. So we'll see how this one goes. So let's take the old example that we have. So student is dragging it from X to X plus 10, and the student sends an update X plus 1. Let's fast forward this a bit to the situation that the slave server contains that data X plus 5. The state server is synchronizing it with the master server. It sends the updates, and just then the update by the teacher reaches the master server. Now, you can see that the master server has more priority than the teacher. So this change will then be rejected. And so this change will then be rejected, and this master server will continue to stay at X plus 5. So it won't change. But this basically solves the problem of perception of lag that we were having. However, there is one more thing that we can do with this that will make the user experience much better, and that is called priority of power. So what happens in this case is, so you may want to, let's say that you make an argument that, so even if the updates by teacher arrives late, but it is still important. So we need to show it. So here there is a trade-off between respecting the priority and respecting the user experience. So So in a situation where priority is more important than user experience, let's say, and you want to respect that priority just a little bit more, so what we can do is we can assign some power to that priority. So let's see how that goes. So let's say the student sends an update x plus 1 to the slave server. The slave server then updates it to x plus 1. But before the slave server sends that updates to the master server, it creates an additional lag of delta milliseconds. Now, this delta millisecond can actually be probabilistic in nature. So, if the so depending on what is the latency at the end of teacher, this delta can be more or less. There can be an AI program that we are currently working on that can decide what should be the value of this delta. Uh, we can have a distribution that can help us so that there is minimum hindrance to the priority as well as maximizing the user experience. So let's say that we we send a we send a we add an additional lag for delta millisecond, and while this system is waiting for delta milliseconds, the update by the teacher arrives the master server. It updates it to x minus 5. Now, since master server has more priority than the slave server, this change will get rejected. The slave server will be sent an update that okay, the new data is x minus 5, and any update by the student that was dragging the model will be rejected, and x minus 5 update will be sent back to the students and all students. So in this case, we neglected uh, the user experience up to delta milliseconds so that the priority can be respected. So this was how priority of power works. Now, what is the problem with limitation differential synchronization? With priority differential synchronization. So the number one is that there is bad experience again if the number of students is large, everyone is editing at the same time. The second one is that if the user has latency more than 100 milliseconds, then it will create a bad experience for them. We actually calculated this. So let me know if anyone is interested. I can show you how we calculated this. That is actually an interesting problem after the call. So yeah, so if it creates a bad experience for networks that has latency greater than 100 milliseconds. Now, if teachers should even have even less latency, and we figured that it should be less than around 50 milliseconds. Yeah, those are the limitations with that. So here is a working demo. So let's say the teacher and student are on an AR call when they're discussing about moment of inertia or rotational mechanics. So we change the amount of force applied, and we'll see how much the angular velocity changes. So you can, and all of this is happening over the internet, over different devices in real time in AR. So using that algorithm that we just discussed. So you can see that if the force is applied changes, that also changes with the student, and it is almost in real time. So there is negligible lag in there. So yeah, there is actually this is a better, clearer version if you want to see how this looks. So an important thing to note here is that the users can move in 3D space independently. So you can see that the teacher and student can move around that AR model. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention, that the force applied in this case is a state. So there is a state change that is transferred over the multiplayer AR call. Yeah. So what we were talking about here is that the user and any user can independently move around in that 3D space. They can view it from different angles and different viewing distances, and basically explore that model in AR. And they can still be connected to each other via a voice call as well as the protocol that we just discussed. So they can show what they are seeing to other people. So that is what I think is good with this. So here is a much better video for that if you want to see. So yeah, you can explore the 3D space. You can view it from different angles and distances and everything. Yeah, so that will be the end of this seminar. Are there any questions? there's actually more to. I wanted to discuss more about games and everything, but don't think we have enough time for this. And people are constantly dropping off the call, so I guess it's getting a little bit overwhelming. So if anyone is interested, feel free to reach out. We can discuss how synchronization can work for games and everything. Yeah. So a shadow is something. So okay. So going back to uh, three-way merge. Yeah. So here we had a base version, client version, and server text. So that is exactly what we took: base version, client model, and a server text. We just renamed it to common shadow, and then we divided that common shadow into two parts so that they can be present on multiple devices. Anything else? All right. If there are any questions, then you can perhaps email them to me. We can discuss that. We can have a separate call for that even, if that be enough. So, yeah, the webinar is now officially over. If you don't have any questions, you can leave it. I I didn't create those lungs. I actually bought them. So someone else, some 3D modeler created those lungs. I just bought it from. They're created in Blender. If you're interested. Yeah, coming to that. So the future work about this is that uh, we are having entrepreneurial goals in mind, and we are going to launch a product where uh, anyone can anyone can view any 3D model in AR, in multiplayer AR, in real time. So the product that we have is that, say for example, you want to run a 3D model. So you can just drag and drop that model. You can add the states of that model, and then all of us can view that in 3D, in AR, and in real time. And then you can communicate with. You can start just like you start a Google Meet. You can start an AR Meet, and the cube example that we showed before. So you can just view it from different angles, and uh, yeah, the models can be interactive. Depends on they can. That's what the state is, right? So interactiveness. So what I showed right now was an interactive AR, right? So you can change the speed of no any phone after 2017 will work. I have a really shitty phone that was made like bought in 2017, and that's where I recorded that demo. Oh, yeah. So yes, sure, we can discuss that. So actually, if you are interested in synchronizing games, I have a really great resource that you can use. Just a So essentially, what happens is in that situation, there are two things that we need to keep in mind. So the first one is since so let's go to the very basics of it again. So the server has to be authoritative. So in case of a game, you cannot give computation to clients. You cannot say that the client cannot decide if the user has died or not. So because users can hack the game, so the game client never sends that okay this user had died. The game client just said what the given user has done. So I have shot at that given person. That's what I'll say, and then the server will decide if that person has been hit or died. So this creates a couple of problems. So the first one will be that what about the delay? Because gamings are fast moving. AR is relatively slow. Text editing is slow, but games are really fast. So there is something called a server reconciliation. So and there is another thing that is called entity interpolation. So these are so I think we don't have enough time to discuss it, but I'll share you where you can read those things from. Uh, just a minute. So here is a really great article that you can refer to. This teaches you everything that you need to know about synchronizing games. That's where I learned from. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone else has any questions, then you can ask. And yeah, we are actually looking for Unity developers and Flutter developers as interns. So if any of you is interested, you can join us. If yeah, we are also looking to expand our team uh, with developers and engineers as well as designers. But phone is enough, but AR goggles are more immersive in nature, right? So you don't have to hold your phone. Like why are Bluetooth earphones when there are wired earphones? Because they're better, more convenient. You are more likely to believe that you are in a virtual world if you are wearing a headset versus when you are holding your phone. But since our use case is teaching people, we don't care that much about the believingness of it, rather than we focus on the educational aspect of it, as well as the interaction problem between teachers and students. So that's where uh, our goal lies. So that's what we're trying to optimize. Yeah. Any more questions, guys? Yeah, I'll stop the recording. If you don't